I'm Felina.
And I'm Summer.
And you are listening to Broken Broken.
Because we're both.
The podcast about living your best life by getting real.
What's up, broken people? This is Felina. And today I am just going to be sharing some things that I'm going through personally, reflecting on with regard to the death of my mom. If there are any listeners who have been paying attention at all, I believe it's well known to the people that know me that my mom passed away about 5 years ago after battling several illnesses that were caused chronic pain. And these included rheumatoid arthritis, fibromyalgia, lupus. She had a hormone deficiency. She had chronic GERD. In fact, today I spent a little bit of time going through some of her medical records. And I've talked previously about the idea of writing a book about how modern medicine killed my mother, and I had been awaiting her medical records in order to sort of wrap my mind around what happened to her. She died in 2014, and today I'm staring at some medical records from 2003. She had, it says, fibromyalgia, arthritis, anxiety attacks, bronchial issues, cervical neuralgia, I'm saying that wrong, I'm sure, possible small vessel disease, muscle spasms, sinusitis, bronchitis. She just had so much going on with her, and it seemed that the only thing they did was just throw so many pills at her. And I mean, I don't see how it ever helped her. I never saw her improve. At the end of the day, I feel like a lot of her illnesses could have been helped by a better diet and for pain management, medical marijuana, if it would have been available at that time. It wasn't. What's crazy to me, one of the craziest things that I saw in her notes, she was severely overprescribed opioid-based pain medication. She developed an addiction to it, and it was ultimately that really deteriorated her and caused her to die. There was no autopsy, no definitive answer as to why she died, what the cause of death was. It was possibly a stroke. But one of the craziest things I found today was a note from 2000, June of 2000. The doctor says, the patient phoned in saying she fell yesterday and her back and right hand were possibly broken. She went to the ER. They gave her number 15 hydrocodone tabs. The patient states they aren't helping and are making her sick to her stomach. Hydrocodone was just one of the many pain pills that she had. Looking at these notes, she was also prescribed Loratab, oxycodone. Oxycodone was the really bad one, Looks like she was refused a refill of Loratabs at one point. But she somehow figured out how to play the system at that time. I think there's better safeguards in place for people who get too many prescriptions refilled. But it all started with one specific doctor getting her addicted. I can't remember the name of the doctor, and these medical records that I have here are so numerous that I don't even know where to begin. It's going to take me forever to scan through all of this and see what I can do to somehow organize it into any sort of coherent timeline or thought. But I will say this. I will say that it's very evident that she was a really sick woman and could have really benefited from alternative pain management treatment. And I am just so grateful that marijuana is now legal in the state of Oklahoma. It truly brings me to tears because I watched my mother suffer so much. And, she was always just looking for some relief from the pain. And you know why she wanted to feel better? It was just so she could participate in life and help others. She was a cancer nurse. She gave and gave and gave and gave and gave of herself until there was nothing left. And she relied on these pills to ease her pain so she could get the rest she needed in order to continue to give. And she eventually gave so much of herself that there was nothing left. And she died. There was nothing left of her to give. Her insides rotted out. The pills had eroded her stomach lining. I would find her in a puddle of her own vomit. And this was my normal life. Somehow it got normalized. And then after she died, it kind of got swept under the rug. I didn't want to deal with it. I didn't want to look into her medical records at that time. I was a young lawyer, but I didn't understand. I knew what statute of limitations was, but now it's been more than 2 years, and there's nothing I can really do about it legally, and that's fine. I just want things to change. Going through the law, the legal process is one way to spark change. Another way is to do things like this, where we share really vulnerable parts of ourselves and parts of our lives so that other people feel less alone in theirs. So, this is really about my journey. It's hard to share my journey with my mom and her journey into her untimely death, what I considered a very untimely death at 54. And it's none of these issues are easy. There's no singular thing to blame. We are all such complex beings, and it's so much easier in hindsight to go, oh, well, that contributed. Yeah, that maybe wasn't the best thing that happened. Or maybe if this wouldn't have happened, then she wouldn't have died, or if she would have never met this person, or if she would have, there's just a million, but-fors out there that could have led to a different result. But, here we are, and we can make sense of it after the fact. We can see, and hopefully we can learn. I remember hearing a quote, and who knows who said it, but something along the lines of a smart person learns from their mistakes, but a wise person learns from someone else's mistakes. And I don't think I'm dishonoring my mom in saying that she made some mistakes. Mistakes in the choices that she made, at least when it came to her health care. But, things have worked out how they have. And I am now, a single mom of a 9-year-old daughter who knew her grandma, remembers her grandma until she was 4 years old, and just loved her and saw the magic that was in her. And I miss her every day. I hate that she missed out on that grandmother phase of her life where she could have been a grandma to Sophia. She missed out on her mother phase of her life because I didn't get to grow up with her. And it's easy to go, okay, well, how do these things relate to her untimely death? How did you not growing up with your mom, or your mom not having you with her, or having custody of you, how did that contribute to her illnesses, her medical condition? But everything is connected, and our emotional well-being is very much connected to our physical well-being. And my mom was in so much pain throughout her life for having lost custody of me. We were separated a majority of my life, and I spent a lot of my time blaming, well, in adulthood, I blamed my father for divorcing her and moving me away from her and fighting her for custody. When my mom remarried, I blamed my new stepdad for taking her away from me, from steering her attention away from me. I was her only child. I had no siblings. My father took me from her and didn't really let me see her. My mom had admitted that she had cheated on him to my dad, who had emotionally abandoned her, and he used me to hurt her. And the emotional ramifications that caused me and her shaped us into the people that we became. And that carrying around so much heavy weight, so much sadness, I think was really hard for my mom. There were a lot of times things were just not easy on her. She gave so much of herself that I think she often was taken advantage of. She was expected to always be the kind, benevolent, forgiving soul who took the blame for everything. And everything was not her fault. Everything was not her fault. But when you carry around that much weight from other people's emotions, and you're an empath like she was, like I am, and you don't take the time to refill your own cup, it can take a toll on you physically. And that really sparked her fibromyalgia to be worse, and eventually developed into lupus, these autoimmune diseases. And she just couldn't seem to do the things that would make her feel better. She couldn't stick to them. She couldn't eat healthy. She couldn't cut sugar. These simple things. She refused to believe that was something that would help, because I think she knew that her life was short, and she wanted to just enjoy what time she had left. I've read all of her writings. I found all of her poetry, all of her journals after she died. She foresaw her own death. There's so many things I read that she talked about how much pain she was in, how much she was ready to leave. Not that she's really gone. She shows up in the most magical times. And just when I think I am over it, when I, not that you ever really are over the loss of a parent, or over what I went through with her. 10 years of being concerned that I would find her dead the next time I showed up to her house. When she didn't answer her phone, I would worry. Was she passed out on the floor? What's going on? Why can't I reach her? Why hasn't she called me back? Constantly worrying about her well-being was exhausting. It's how I spent most of my 20s. When I should have finally had her in my life, she was taken away from me by the pills. I kind of lost my train of thought here, but I will say this, that, the mother-daughter bond is so incredibly magical and special. And having my own daughter, it's a love and that is indescribable. And we seem to have this, psychic connection that is indescribable. She is half me, and we are both so intuitive, and my mom was too. Even though we didn't live together, we were so close when I was growing up, and she knew me better than anyone, and she never judged me for anything I ever did. She made me feel so accepted and loved. And I was so lucky to grow up with someone like that who just accepted me for the way I was. I know there are so many people out there who are not fortunate enough to have that. So I'm just so grateful to have been raised, or at least had a mother who was so accepting of everyone. I don't know that I would be co-hosting this podcast and believe in what we're doing if I hadn't been raised by a woman like her. She was magical. Since she died, there has been a few times when she has shown herself in my life. Shortly after she died one time I was going through some old records of hers, and I started reading through her journals, and I started writing in her journals in the empty pages of them. And I wrote a song. It's called To the Moon, and it's my favorite song I've ever written, and usually it's everyone's favorite song who hears it. And it was, she was there with me that day. I could feel her presence, and it just flowed out of me. She was with me. I found the right words when I needed them, and it was just magical. And that was, 5 years ago. Well, this week, my stepdad brought me more of my mom's things. He's remarried, and he's moving on with his life, and it's been difficult for me to watch. He doesn't really understand that, but it's been hard to feel like I might lose him too. And so I went through her things and stuck inside a package of stickers that I believe she had planned to use to make a scrapbook for me. She was the queen of wonderful intentions, but not always enough time to follow through. And I did, unfortunately, inherit that from her. But I know her heart was in the right place, and she had saved so many wonderful things. But tucked inside one of the packages of stickers was a letter to me. A letter I had never read before. It's been a little over 5 years. I found this letter today, and the timing of me finding it and the content of it was nothing short of a miracle. She's still with me, and I just want to share this letter. And, after I share this letter, I will be done with this episode for the evening. As I work through the rest of the medical records and work through my own personal feelings. Funny how 5 years later, I'm still grieving her loss. Grief is so difficult and so unique to each person. But this will be a continued topic throughout the life of this podcast. There will never be a time when I will completely be over her loss. But, I do hope I can do what she says in this letter. And so with that, I will just read this letter and it's such words of wisdom that I hope everyone can find some wisdom in this that applies to their own life. Felina, I don't want you to look back at your childhood with regrets that you didn't live with the perfect family. I want you to draw from the experience and build a successful life for yourself. I live in fear that you will grow up to resent me for not being with you every step of growing up. I hope you know that I have been growing up with you. I've learned from the pain of our separation to become a more compassionate person. We can use our life experiences to either pull us down or lift us to higher levels of understanding. The greatest joy you will experience in life will be when you have somehow touched another life with the beauty found deep within your soul. You were born with a soul, but it is developed from your life experiences and how you choose to use them. When things are getting you down, Look into the depths of your heart and see the special person you have become and are becoming. I know you'll be proud because I have seen your inner beauty and strength. Don't worry that life is not perfect. Use its disappointments to strengthen yourself and enlighten others. As much as I would like you to be mine, you're not. You belong to yourself and the world surrounding you. You have an energy that is transferred to others, including me, that makes them feel good. If you use this energy and your talents for the good of others, you will be more successful than the richest person in the world. I love you, Mom.
You can contact the podcast at brokebrokenpodcast@gmail.com. The Broken Podcast can be found online at www.brokebrokenpodcast.com, on Twitter at BrokeBrokenShow, on Instagram and Facebook at BrokeBrokenPodcast. You can listen to us on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and YouTube.